Welcome to Mortification of Spin, a casual conversation about things that count, with Carl Trueman, Todd Pruitt, and Amy Bird. Mortification of Spin is a weekly podcast from the Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals. This week, the Spinners take some time to talk with Tom Askell, Calvinist in the Southern Baptist Convention. Tom's decades in pastoral ministry have given him a valuable perspective on church and doctrine, and his keen insights are worth listening to. Stay tuned after to find out how to get a free audio message from the Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals.
Well, thank you for joining us for Mortification of Spin. Of course, I'm joined always by my friends Amy Bird and Carl Trueman. And today, we're talking about a subject that is near and dear to my heart as someone who was raised in the Southern Baptist Convention, someone who came to know the Lord in a Southern Baptist church and heard the gospel in a Southern Baptist church, and who still has a great deal of affection for my Southern Baptist brothers and sisters. We're talking about Calvinism in the Southern Baptist Convention. And yes, it does exist in the Southern Baptist Convention. In fact, Carl and Amy, I would dare say that many, if not most, oftentimes of the Calvinists people meet these days happen also to be Baptists, which is kind of a strange phenomenon. I mean, you go to some of the big conferences that are typically Reformed-ish, or at least committed to the doctrines of grace. And if you're a Presbyterian, you're in the minority.
Yeah, I was going to say in 2009, I was down at a conference, was speaking at a conference at a PCA church in Florida. And the only visitors from outside of the congregation to that conference were actually Southern Baptists.
Wow.
So I remember thinking, these people are not far from the kingdom of God.
Exactly.
I was impressed.
Right. Well, speaking of Florida, we have a guest with us today. It's Dr. Tom Askell. Tom is the pastor of Grace Baptist Church in Cape Coral, Florida. So those of you in cold climates, eat your heart out. Tom is also the founder of Founders Ministries, which we'll talk about in just a minute. He is also completely ambivalent about Texas A&M football, cares nothing about the subject whatsoever, and probably couldn't answer any question about Texas A&M football. But Tom, Pastor Tom, thank you for joining us today.
Well, it's my joy to be here with you, Todd. Thank you, and Carl and Amy. Glad to meet you guys.
Well, we're happy that you joined us, and as Carl mentioned, there is an interesting phenomenon about Baptists, and even more specifically Southern Baptists, as Calvinists. Now, this isn't a brand new development, but I would guess that the popularity of, shall we say, the doctrines of grace among Southern Baptists is something that is at least in our time fairly recent. However, one of the reasons why we had you on the program, Tom, is that you were a Calvinist before Calvinism was cool. Yes?
Yeah, I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
It's been over 3 decades now.
Yeah. So you are a graduate of Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary in Fort Worth, not exactly a bastion of Calvinism. And in fact, I was going to ask, are they planning on building anything in your honor at Southwestern Seminary?
I understand that there is a toilet stall that has my name on it somewhere on campus.
Okay. Well, I was wondering if it might be something like that. Also, I was now that I'm thinking about it, Paige Patterson has recently said, which this was crazy because Carl Trueman actually preached at Southwestern Seminary several weeks ago, which I thought, that shocked me. That kind of turned my world upside down. He also expressed the fact that basically his favorite Calvinist is Carl Trueman, which I thought, I wonder if Tom knows about this and if that hurt Tom at all.
Am I not everybody's favorite Calvinist?
Because I was thinking, Tom, that you might be Paige Patterson's favorite Calvinist, but you apparently don't make the list.
Well, that's one of many lists that I have not made, so that's not any surprise there. And I understand why Carl Trueman would be Paige Patterson's favorite Calvinist. Carl Trueman has a great following. I've been his fanboy for many, many years.
Oh,
he's one of my favorite celebrities.
Oh, nice.
Carl Trueman is your homeboy?
Yes, perfect. Tom, so why you're the founder of Founders Ministries. Now, why the name Founders? For those who may not know why that's important.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's fair to say that I'm the founder of Founders. I'm one of 7 men that helped begin this ministry 32 years ago.
Yeah.
And we called it at the time, wanting to have just a pastor's conference, we called it the Southern Baptist Conference on the Faith of the Founders. Mm-hmm. And that was just mercifully shortened to Founders Conference after a few years. Yeah. But the reason for that is that the founding of the Southern Baptist Convention was led by men. 293 delegates showed up in May of 1845 in Augusta, Georgia. Every one of them came from churches or associations held unambiguously to the Second London Baptist Confession of Faith, either in its Charleston or Philadelphia expressions. And so there was no doubt that those who formed the entity that became known as the SBC were Calvinists. Calvinism was the cradle in which the SBC was rocked.
Yeah. Yeah, which is huge, and I think a bit of history that most Southern Baptists are unaware of.
Yeah, that's gotten much better. I mean, certainly from
definitely.
my days at Southwestern, I had professors that did not know that and found it very difficult to believe.
Right.
But today, because of the material that's been published and the ready access to it, anyone who wants to be informed can be.
Right.
Why do you think there was such antipathy then towards Calvinism in the Southern Baptist Convention, Tom?
When? You're talking about over the last 30 or 40 years or longer?
I suppose my own knowledge of the Southern Baptist Convention is fairly limited and really of the fairly recent history, but it seems to me that there's a lot out there of fairly aggressively anti-Calvinist rhetoric in certain quarters of the Southern Baptist Convention.
Well, yeah, that's true, and it's really interesting because it depends on your perspective, where you're sitting from. From my perspective, some of that anti-Calvinism rhetoric has died down over the last 5 or 6 years, which may seem strange to someone from your vantage point. However, it's still there, and there's still pockets where it is pretty intense. And I think there's several reasons for it. I do believe that some still do not want to acknowledge our history. They've gone from saying Southern Baptists have never believed that to now saying, well, yeah, that was one of the streams that were present in the early forming of the convention. And of course, that's a historian's debate, and I'm always happy to listen to it and enter in a little bit to it, because some of the arguments that are used by those who are opposed to Calvinism and wanting historical support actually play right into the very case that we've been making now for decades. And so the history that they appealed to when looked at from theological vantage point actually supports the argument that I just made earlier, the assertion that I just made earlier. So, but I think that the antipathy goes much deeper than that, because here's the reality. If what we believe about the gospel and how the gospel works, and I do believe those who are not full-blown Calvinists can know and love the gospel and believe the gospel and preach the gospel. I'm not suggesting that. But in terms of how the gospel works, in terms of what happens to a person when he becomes a Christian, how a person becomes a Christian, what a Christian is, and then what a church is that is formed by Christians, and in our Baptist context, with a commitment to a regenerate church membership, if what we believe about those things is true, then that is an indictment on much that has been taught and practiced for at least 2 or 3 generations, pretty commonly within the Southern Baptist context. And so that's a pretty hard and bitter pill to swallow for folks.
So, Tom, given the fact that the Southern Baptist Convention was founded by men who were clearly Calvinistic in their soteriology, given the fact that the very first, correct me if I'm wrong, the very first Southern Baptist Confession of Faith, wasn't it the Abstract of Principles?
That's correct.
Which is basically, wouldn't you say, a derivative of the Westminster Standards, just a Baptistic version?
Yes, it's an abstract of the Second London Confession of Faith.
Yeah,
and James Boyce, who was the founder of Southern Seminary, referred to the Westminster Confession as, quote, our confession.
Wow. Okay, so how does a denomination then founded in that way, how did it drift off into the more revivalistic, really in a lot of ways Arminian type of theology and practice? How did that happen?
Well, I think that in general that we see that all across life. There's just this always downward pull because of sin. There's always a drift away from what is true and right and good. And that certainly did happen. Southern Baptists were insulated from a lot of the things that took place in terms of influence from European thought and even some of the evolutionary thought that took root in North America in the latter part of the 19th, early 20th century, because there was a sectarianism to much Southern Baptist life. They were in the South, of course, the after effects of the Civil War, all of those things contributed as well. What got Southern Baptists was not so much the same types of attacks that denominations. What got Southern Baptists was more of a pragmatism that began to shove theology to the peripheral edges of identity and importance. And it's really, it's tragic, but it is somewhat understandable whenever you go back and look and see what was happening. In 1920s, there was this great sense of hope in the late teens and 20s that, the SBC was branching out, sending missionaries, good things were happening. There was this very significant campaign called the 75 Million Campaign, which was a pledge to raise $75 million for benevolent causes, missionary causes, evangelistic causes in churches that are Baptists in the South, the SBC. Well, of course, the Depression hit. And so a lot of these pledges that were made could not be kept in churches, individuals. There was just a lot of suffering that happened. And there's actually correspondence. I don't know that it's ever seen the light of day, but Tom Nettles has discovered correspondence between certain Southern Baptist leaders in which they are arguing with each other and saying, look, you cannot come out with this position. You've got to drop this argument. So we are about to go under if we do not get these monies coming in to pay these bills that we've incurred. Then it doesn't matter whatever else happens. And so theological precision and theological concerns begin to be sublimated to this larger concern of keeping this ship afloat and moving things forward. So, that happened by God's grace, you could say, I think you should say. There was some coalescing around the Baptist Faith and Message of 1925, which was not a revision, it was more than that. It was built upon the New Hampshire Statement of Faith, and it was a good statement in many respects. It had a good statement against Darwinianism and things like that in there. It was helpful. But from that, then, there just began to be this assumption through the 30s and 40s that, we all agree on these things and we've got bigger fish to fry right now. In the 1950s, there was an explosion of institutional institutional causes, maybe is a good way to put it. Of course, it was after World War II, so the nation has this can-do attitude and spirit about it. And if you look in the 1950s, there were more institutions and more movements formally begun by Southern Baptists than I think really in any other decade of our history. And again, and it was very pragmatic, methodological. A million more in 54 was a campaign. And then it was, nobody named it, but it should have been called Try to Keep Them Alive in 55 because you couldn't find them after the fact. But that was one of those big deals. So we come into the 60s then, and the unifying identity of Southern Baptists is methodology. We do what we do in certain ways that identify us as Southern Baptists. And so you had we had envelope cards or envelopes that were used for offerings. They had little boxes where you check off your daily Bible reading, daily prayer.
I remember those,
So that was kind of Southern Baptist identity.
Exactly.
That was our marker.
Yeah.
It was methodological.
So identity moved away from any, other than as far as doctrinal specifics go, apart from just the most general type of evangelical affirmations, identity really moved from being grounded in any specifics doctrinally into more pragmatic and managerial type concerns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that there was a rejection or outright denial.
Right.
It was just, doctrine was no longer at the center. I took some real encouragement, sadly so, but encouragement in reading David Wells's books, in which he made this case for a broader evangelical concern, and just seeing, that's exactly what happened to the SBC, not for the same reasons always, but the exact same thing happened to theology.
Exactly.
So in the 60s, then what began to happen in the 50s and 60s is our institutions were not rigorously theological, confessional as they had been. And there began to be this, this sense of envy or desire for respectability in the academy. And so many of our scholars, or those that aspired to be scholars, were very desirous of being recognized by the broader academic world. And of course, you can't have any respectability if you believe in things like creation and
or atonement.
Bodily. Yeah, that's right. So all of these doctrines then begin to be questioned, and there was a big turn as well in theology that impacted Southern Baptists in the 20s and 30s, with a personalism that came in largely through E.Y. Mullins, who was a giant of an influence among Baptists in general, and specifically Southern Baptists. And so, like, his magnum opus is called The Christian Religion in Its Doctrinal Expression. And you can hear the title. That what's important here is religion, and yes, we've got to talk about it doctrinally, but that's not really the issue. It's experience.
Right.
Well, I've made a strange observation in some of my experience with Southern Baptist church plants. My husband and I were a member of one early in our marriage, and we actually sought that church out because we looked up the website on the internet and we saw that it was a Southern Baptist church plant. But then in talking to the pastor and the lead team, we noticed they wanted to kind of be on the down low about the fact that they were a Southern Baptist church. And I've noticed that in a couple other churches that are Southern Baptist affiliated, yet don't really want to identify themselves that way. Are you aware of this, or have any comment about that? I find that kind of strange.
Well, it might be strange on one level. On another level, to me, it's completely understandable, because Southern Baptists have done some things that haven't been always wise. And there have been a lot of things done in the name of Southern Baptists that the rest of us get painted with that isn't necessarily fair. So I can understand that. I think a couple of years ago at the SBC, it was agreed upon that you could call yourself Great Commission Baptists as well. And so a lot of, I assume, we'll start doing that. So, there's maybe some embarrassment. There have been some things said and done publicly by some Southern Baptist leaders in the years prior to the most recent 5 or 6 that have just been inexcusable, and positions staked out that they weren't necessarily bad positions, but the way that they were articulated and defended just made you want to shake your head, if not more. So I get that. And then also just the whole demographics. We have people in our church who have, some have come to Christ, and they have family and friends up in the Northeast. And the questions they get is, tell me that you don't go to one of those snake handling churches. This is a Southern Baptist church. What do you do? I mean, I've read about those people, that type of thing. And so there's just a lot of baggage with that. And if a church getting started doesn't want to carry that baggage, that's no big deal to me. I don't have a problem with that.
We have a similar thing with the Orthodox Presbyterian Church. I've lost count of the number of people who have asked me over the years, are you connected to Russian Orthodoxy, or Eastern Orthodoxy in some ways?
Really?
So we've actually dropped the Orthodox from the title of our local church in order to try to avoid that kind of confusion.
And I would imagine that would be pretty common confusion up here in the Philadelphia area, especially, because of the presence of Russian Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox.
And there's the whole problem that Carl's name's attached to the
Carl's
church.
name as well.
They dropped my name from the signpost as well.
Now, Tom, the whole reason we had you on here today, all of this Calvinism and Southern Baptist, that's all been a smokescreen.
Okay.
The main reason we've had you on is because we want to know When is the Southern Baptist Convention going to do something about Stephen Furtick and Ed Young Jr.?
Who?
We call them the gifts that keep on giving.
That's what we call them here.
I think there are some people that are surprised when they find out that those men are Southern Baptists and that their churches are Southern Baptist churches.
Yeah.
One other question.
Another
Tom.
reason why you might not want to identify.
One last question, Tom, before we close out is Todd is a Southern Baptist apostate. What do you guys do with apostates? Do you have kind of fatwas? Can I legitimately put Todd to death after the show or something on your behalf?
No, we get in a back room that's filled with smoke and we hang them in effigy.
I want to buy one of those effigies.
Yeah.
You could lure them in there with the pipe smoke.
Absolutely.
Wait, now I have a question as well. Amy, you said you and your husband sought out a Southern Baptist church because it was Southern Baptist.
Good follow.
Right.
Are you guys Baptists?
No, we're Presbyterians now, but
So you're apostate as well.
yes.
So two of the three.
Yeah.
Well, and I was a Reformed
Two
Baptist,
of the
so I'm
three
an
that I've
apostate
seen.
I grew
Baptist.
up Southern Baptist, so yeah, I have a strong connection to the Southern Baptist.
All three of us came to Christ through Baptists.
Yeah.
How about that? What does that tell you?
Yeah.
Well, it tells me that you have forsaken your mother.
Well, and I will tell you this in all seriousness. It tells you that one of the things is, as goofy as some corners of the Baptist world can be, just like some corners of the Presbyterian world, there's a whole lot of Baptists over the years that have been very faithful to the gospel. And we're thankful for that. I grew up hearing the gospel in a Southern Baptist church, and so it's a great thing.
But it's fascinating to me. You guys ought to do a show on this sometime. The number of very useful servants of Christ today who formerly were Baptists, or more specifically, formerly Southern Baptists.
Yeah.
Starting with Todd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Jerry Bridges and Michael Horton and Bert Parsons. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
It's a great point. I mean, I've joked about the fact that the PCA would be half the size it is or less if it weren't for all the former Southern Baptists that are among us.
Make that our subtitle.
Yeah. But anyway, Tom, we're very glad that you are laboring faithfully in the fields of the Southern Baptist Convention. We're thankful that now you're not quite as anathematized as you were maybe 20 years ago, and that you've achieved some level of acceptance in your denomination. And I, for one, as a guy who was a brand new Southern Baptist pastor who had come to accept the doctrines of grace, was very grateful to stumble across, quite by accident on the internet, Founders Ministry back in about 1999, and you guys helped kind of saved my sanity for a while, because I thought I was alone until I found Founders. So bless you in your work, not only with Founders, but just in your daily faithful work as a pastor. I'm glad that there's good, solid Southern Baptists like you out there. So thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Tom, hope to see you again sometime, and thanks for joining us. And for all of you that listened in, hope this has been a good and fun and helpful conversation about things that count, and we'll see you again next time.
Glory, hallelujah, I shall not be moved. Anchored in Jehovah, I shall not be moved, just like a tree that's planted by the waters. I shall not be moved.
Thanks for listening to Mortification of Spin, a podcast of the Alliance of Confessing Evangelicals. The Alliance is a coalition of pastors, scholars, and churchmen who hold to the historical creeds and confessions of the Reformed faith and who proclaim biblical doctrine in order to foster a Reformed awakening in today's church. Go to our website, mortificationofspin.org, to download a free MP3 from the Alliance called The 5 Points of Calvinism by Roger Nicole. And come back next week when Carl is too busy being famous to talk with Todd and Amy.
Unfortunately, the much-beloved Carl Trueman is on tour right now, or as you might know him, Rev Master T, is on tour right now through Australia and doing what he does best,
his art, his hip hop, his rap. You can feel it. Carl's got the rhythm.
In his place, they found the author of a new book on Luther.
It's great to be on the program. I'm slightly disappointed that the witty, intelligent, and good-looking one isn't available today, but I'm very happy to be interviewed by you two also-rans.
We'll see you next week. Don't forget to stop by mortificationofspin.org to download your free MP3.
Hey, and I'm wondering, did you get that Harley yet?
No, I did. Why don't you guys go back and put a tag in on this program for a fund for Tom Asker's Harley?
That's a great idea. We should do that for him.
Should do that.
That'll
Yeah,
make you
right?
a cool Calvinist.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Absolutely.